The new CBA didn't just tweak a few numbers this summer. It's rewriting the entire competitive map of the league. Behind every flashy trade and free agency headline, front offices are wrestling with penalties that barely make sense on paper, and more than one of them is tearing down a roster that just won them games. Tonight we're breaking down 5 teams from the Western Conference's Northwest Division. Their offseason moves and the cap sheet sitting behind them tell 2 very different stories. Denver's offseason didn't start with a big splash. It started with a teardown, and the new CBA left the front office no other choice. The biggest loss walked straight into a Miami uniform. Tim Hardaway Jr. averaged 13.5 points last season, shooting 40.7% from 3 across 80 games. He was the one reliable scorer Denver's second unit could actually count on, and now he's gone. The front court took a hit too. Jonas Valanciunas is out the door as well. He wasn't flashy, 13.4 minutes a night, but he still put up 8.7 points and 5.1 rebounds on 58.2% shooting from the field. That's the guy who held things together whenever Jokic sat. Denver just lost its most proven insurance policy at center. So who's replacing that production? Marvin Bagley III steps in as the direct swap for Valanciunas. The roster page might not show it yet, but he's in. He brings more mobility around the rim, which fills part of the hole inside. The draft added youth on top of that. Bryce Hopkins, 24 years old, and Trevin Brazil both give you size. Neither one replaces three-point shooting overnight. Add it up, and the exchange rate is brutal. Out goes proven perimeter shooting and a steady interior presence. In comes athleticism and rookie-scale forwards, still finding their feet. October's the first time we'll see whether that math works in Denver's favor. Denver's cap sheet already reads $210,810,000, guaranteed money only. That's already past the luxury tax, and Bagley's number alone pushed them through the first apron line, sitting at $209 million. Here's the thing though, that $210 million figure is the calm before the storm. The real bomb hasn't even hit the sheet yet. Look at how Peyton Watson's deal shows up right now. It's a cap hold. A guy who broke out last year, whose player rating, that's our internal number for on-court contribution, jumped to 782, is not walking into next season for $0. Local reporting puts his next deal around $25 million a year. Add that in, and Denver's number jumps past $235 million overnight. That doesn't just clear the first apron. It blows straight through the second apron, sitting at $221,600,000. Spencer Jones adds another layer to the headache. His player rating sits at 707, production that's creeping up on the starters. Lose him, and the second unit stops functioning. Keep him, and the tax bill gets uglier by the day. More than half the cap is already locked into 3 names. Jokic at $59 million, $30,000. Murray at $50 million, $110,000. Gordon at $31 million, $980,000. Cam Johnson and Christian Braun add another $44 million on top, and neither one is going anywhere. So the front office is staring at 2 paths, and neither one is comfortable. Let Watson walk and lose one of the best young pieces on the roster for nothing, or eat the second apron penalties, frozen first-round picks included, and bet everything on this being Jokic's last real window. Denver's chasing a championship core, and the price of keeping it together just went up. Minnesota just tore down half its roster, and the moves only make sense once you see what they were actually chasing. Mike Conley is gone, Naz Reid is gone. So are Kyle Anderson and Julius Randle. This isn't just turnover, it's the end of an identity. This team built its whole reputation on physical, high IQ, half-court defense. And that identity walked out the door with them. Here's the real reason behind all that roster turnover. Anthony Edwards needed a real point guard next to him. Last season, his player rating hit 885, the best finisher on the roster by a wide margin, and Minnesota still had him bringing the ball up and creating every set himself. That's a waste of what he does best. He needed someone else handling setup so he could just finish. The front office chased that fix all the way back to the 2020 draft class. There's a strange irony sitting there. Minnesota actually brought LaMelo Ball in for an interview when they held the first pick that year. Asked about his goals after basketball, he said he wanted to be president of the United States. That answer spooked the front office enough to take Edwards instead. It's become a bit of franchise lore at this point. Now the same guy they passed on is walking through the door, and Minnesota gave up a chunk of its interior depth to get him. They added Josh Green in the deal for wing athleticism and defense, then rounded out the roster with Trey Lyles and Isaiah Evans. Put Edwards and Ball on the floor together, and Minnesota's whole identity flips. This isn't a slow, physical, defense-first team anymore. It's built to play in space and win in transition. They gave up the pieces that used to define them to make this bet. And now they find out what that costs them. Minnesota's whole bet on the backcourt left the cap sheet looking twisted. Right now, their guaranteed payroll sits at $218,880,000. That's already through the first apron, and it leaves them just $2,700,000 short of the second apron line. That's about as tight as it gets. Break down where the money's going, and the shape of this roster gets weird fast. Anthony Edwards is making close to $48,900,000. LaMelo Ball isn't far behind at $40,770,000. Two max deals stacked right next to each other. Then Ayo Dosunmu at $19,310,000, Josh Green at $14,680,000, and Dante DiVincenzo at $12,540,000. Four guards, all with player ratings well north of 780. No team in the league has spent like this on a backcourt before. The cost of that shows up everywhere else. Behind Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels, who's making $25,750,000, there's no real frontcourt depth left. Veterans gone. That sets up a brutal tactical bind. To actually get all this guard talent on the floor together, Minnesota has to slide McDaniels up to power forward at 185 pounds and turn 6'4" guards into small forwards. That means giving up on rebounding entirely, and it means Rudy Gobert, 34 years old, carries the entire paint alone. There's a second problem sitting underneath all of it. Minnesota currently has 16 players under guaranteed contract. The opening night limit is 15. Somebody gets waived before the season starts, and whoever it is, that salary becomes dead money with zero return. Minnesota already let Ingles and Phillips go, and the front office is still scraping just to stay under the second apron line. They gave up future draft capital and any real size inside, betting everything on backcourt firepower alone. Whether that gamble pays off is a story the league is about to write in real time. OKC came into the summer as defending champions who didn't repeat. What made that team work was the best defense in the league, backed by a bench that could put up points in a hurry. And this offseason, the front office made moves that seemed to work against that strength. Two guards are gone, and the bench felt it immediately. They were the last line of the bench that actually held things together. Aaron Wiggins, who brought real defensive versatility, is now in Atlanta. Isaiah Joe shot 42.3% from three last season. Real spacing off the bench, and he's in Detroit now. Brandon Carlson, who handled backup center minutes, landed in Portland too. Wiggins and Joe especially weren't just depth pieces. They played at a level that matched or beat some starters around the league. The new CBA made keeping that group together financially impossible, and OKC had to let them walk. Replacing that production falls almost entirely on rookie-scale players. The draft brought in Ademara, a 7'3" center who projects as the next wall protecting the rim. Add Bennett Sturtz, Otega Owe, and undrafted signee Josh Dix to the mix. It all comes down to one thing: how fast these rookies close the gap, the departures left behind. Even after that kind of bleeding, the numbers coming out of Oklahoma City look like a punishment handed down by the new CBA itself. Their guaranteed payroll sits at $232,850,000, the highest in the league. There's no cap holds padding that figure, no uncertainty left to resolve. Every dollar of it is locked in. That puts them more than $11 million over the second apron line, the threshold that triggers frozen roster spots and falling draft picks. There's a second story buried in these numbers, and it's about roster shape, not just money. 10 players on this roster are classified as guards. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads that group with a player rating of 974 video game numbers. AJ Mitchell sits at 827. Cason Wallace comes in at 804. On almost any other roster, all three would start immediately. Here, they're stuck in traffic behind each other. Forwards tell the opposite story. Only 3 players on the roster are true forwards. Right now it's Luguentz Dort at 6'4" and Jalen Williams at 6'5", holding down forward spots they weren't really built for. They make it work through physicality and effort, not size, and that's papering over a real hole. Factor in two-way deals, and this roster runs past the standard 15-man limit before opening night even arrives. Somebody's getting moved before camp starts. Which direction the front office takes is the open question. One path packages some of this backcourt depth and brings back size on the wing. The other eats the tax bill and runs this unconventional build. Small forwards, oversized centers, right into the season. Oklahoma City's offseason isn't finished yet. Portland just pulled off the kind of roster teardown nobody saw coming. Last season, this team had a real contradiction built into it. Donovan Clingan and the front court were fortifying the paint, dominant on the boards, locking down the rim. But in the half court, nobody could actually run the offense, and Portland finished dead last in the league in turnover rate. Size without direction. To fix that core problem, the front office made a trade that shook up the entire league. Jerami Grant, the longtime scorer carrying a heavy contract, and young defensive wing Chris Murray both went to Memphis. Losing Grant and Murray does put some short-term risk on the wing, both in scoring and on defense. What Portland got back made that risk worth taking. Ja Morant, one of the most explosive downhill threats in the league. Morant put up 19.5 points and 8.1 assists last season, though that's across just 20 games before an elbow issue shut him down. Health is the whole question here. When he's on the floor, he's still a legitimate floor general, not just a scorer. His drives and his gravity should unclog an offense that's been stuck for years, and it takes real pressure off young ball handlers like Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. Inside, Portland added shooting punch too. Brandon Carlson's hitting 36% from 3, Micah Potter's at 42.3. Both give Morant actual room to work with when he attacks the rim. Trade away your expensive, established scorer, and this is what you get in return, a completely different identity. Portland's built around Morant now. Fast, downhill, built to strike in transition. Whether this young core can handle that kind of pressure is the story to watch, as Portland's rebuild plays out. Even with a superstar landing in Portland, the cap sheet tells a story of restraint, not chaos. Guaranteed payroll sits at $202,300,000. That threads the needle perfectly. Under the first apron, under the second apron. The new ownership group wants nothing to do with the luxury tax, and somehow they kept all 3 of their expensive backcourt pieces intact. Morant's making around $42,160,000. Holiday's at $34,800,000. Lillard sits at $22,510,000. That financial balancing act comes with a real cost, though a roster shape that's badly out of proportion. Look at the guard room. Morant, Holiday, Lillard, plus Sharpe and Henderson. That's 5 legitimate NBA guards fighting for playing time. The fix, apparently, is sliding 6'8" Vit Krejci up to small forward and using Jrue Holiday, a defensive anchor, out on the wing in a small ball 3-guard look. Flip over to the front court and power forward is paper thin. Deni Avdija and Toumani Camara are carrying real expectations there, and behind them there's almost nobody. Here's where it gets strange. Portland already has 2 legitimate centers in Robert Williams III and Donovan Clingan. And yet the front office went out and added 2 more stretch bigs, Brandon Carlson and Micah Potter. One read on this: Williams carries injury risk, so they're setting him up to flip for value at the trade deadline while he's still healthy. The other read is stranger, sliding Potter up to power forward on the strength of that shooting as an actual fix for that thin spot. Too many guards. A crowded center rotation. A forward spot running on fumes. How Portland solves that, through position switches, through in-season trades, or both, is the real test of whatever blueprint this front office is working from. Utah's decision this offseason marks a genuine turning point for the franchise. Everyone saw it coming. The contract talks had been souring for months, and it still landed hard. Walker Kessler, the guy who was supposed to anchor the interior, is now a Laker. Last year, Kessler had fans buzzing right out of the gate. He kept the rim protection that made him valuable, then added something new: real 3-point range. That combination looked like proof he'd turned into a modern 2-way big. And then a season-ending injury took it all away before anyone could see it play out over a full year. 5 games. That's all Utah got out of him last season. Which means the hype for this year for the healthy, evolved version of Kessler was building towards something huge. Instead, the front office moved on from him entirely a week after they'd already drafted his replacement plan. Because Utah had the number 2 pick, Darren Peterson. Peterson brings shooting and elite, disciplined perimeter defense. Exactly the kind of 2-way guard this defense was missing. Utah bled points in transition last year, and their perimeter defense was a real problem. Peterson fixes that instantly, and he gives Utah a long-term backcourt piece to build around alongside George and Collier. To cover the interior minutes Kessler left behind, Utah brought in Jackson Hayes for mobility and Josh Okogie for perimeter toughness, the exact thing this defense has lacked for years. Add Mo Bamba and a couple of young guards behind them, and the whole roster got more athletic. Trade away the big man fans wanted back healthy and fix your worst positional weakness with a top draft pick instead. That's the swap Utah just made. Whatever this does to Salt Lake City's identity, it's pushing this rebuild into its next phase, and that's the story to watch all season. Reading this cap sheet, the Kessler-Peterson swap looks a lot smarter than the emotional version of that story. Utah's guaranteed payroll sits at $180,050,000. That's well under the apron lines, and it's a long way below the luxury tax threshold too, which sits at $200,400,000. The single biggest reason for that breathing room is simple. Kessler's $30,100,000 cap hold is completely off the books now that he's in Los Angeles. With that space freed up, Utah's real move was keeping Jusuf Nurkic. Locking him in at around $11,450,000 says the front office values what he brought to the offense last year, and it signals they're sticking with the motion-heavy system that's defined this team. Then there's the piece that makes this whole plan work, Darren Peterson, the number 2 pick in the draft. A two-way difference maker on a rookie deal worth around $13,190,000. That's about as good as value gets for a front office. Peterson instantly upgrades a backcourt that had real defensive gaps, and he fills out the size and depth at every position at the same time. Utah's built something rare here, a roster with almost no real holes left, and a cap sheet that's as clean as anyone's in the league. They've got cap space nobody else in this division has, and Salt Lake City's turnaround starts from here. This offseason across the Northwest Division comes down to one real split, and the cap sheets make it obvious. Denver, Minnesota, and Oklahoma City are all chasing a title, and they're paying for it the same way. Oklahoma City's already past the second apron. Denver and Minnesota are pressed right up against that line, and the roster gaps are showing a backcourt or frontcourt that doesn't quite fit together. None of them backed off. They're betting everything on this exact core, right now. Portland and Utah took the opposite path. Both traded away the veteran faces that used to define these franchises, and both walked away with a real building block. Ja Morant in Portland, Darren Peterson in Utah, plus cap sheets that sit nowhere near the tax line. Zoom out across the whole league, and this is the story of the new CBA. There's no single right way to build a roster anymore. Some franchises are going all in on what they've already got. Others are rebuilding the cap sheet from the ground up. Which approach actually wins out only gets answered once the games start counting. What do you guys think? Out of the 5 teams we covered today, which front office do you think played this new CBA the smartest? And who do you think just took the most dangerous gamble? Head down to the comments and let me hear your own tactical breakdowns. That's all for today's broadcast. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.